Welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Dr. Sandra Colton-Medici, and I help you grow your online business with personal branding guidance, social media strategy, and visual design tutorials. Subscribe to my channel. You hear that little yes, make sure that you subscribe, and then also check down below into the description section because I always put one freebie down there that you can download for free to help enhance your business. So let's talk about 2022 and creating your social media strategy. There are a lot of different ways to think about social media strategy, and really it just is one piece of the puzzle when you're putting together your business plan. So if you have listened to a lot of people that are talking about here's a great hack, or here's a great tip, or here's this that you should throw into your business plan immediately, think about your ultimate goals when you're thinking about how you're strategically going to get to them. Now, one, I said goals. So we have to talk about setting goals for your business. If you are outlining your goals for 2022, social media should be sitting somewhere in that plan, but it isn't your whole plan. So just think about that as a disclaimer that social media is not the entirety of your whole strategy. So the first part of creating your social media strategy for 2022 really begins with a brand audit. And there's three parts to that brand audit that I think you should go through. Number one is doing an assessment of what worked and what didn't. Looking back on all of your content from 2021 and looking and saying, okay, during the 12-month period, what was working? Look at the shares, look at the likes, look at the saves, look at all of the engagement numbers, look at those metrics to see, okay, what was working? You can leave behind what didn't work in 2021 and just kind of think about that as like a reserve, because you don't want to throw away content, because you could tweak or revamp some of the things that didn't work and try to adjust them to make things into what could work, right? And that's part of that testing phase. It's kind of like a tweak, now I'm gonna test, right? So think about what didn't work, think about what did work, look at your metrics, look at those insights, analytics, and take what really worked and double down on that in 2022. Now, the second part of that is asking the question, why did it work, right? And that might take a little bit more surveying your audience, asking them, okay, why did you share it? Why did you save it? Why did you like it, right? Doing all of those things is really important to know the why behind why people did what they did. So the third part is that we need to focus on how people are engaging with us. So we started off with the brand audit, what worked, what didn't, insights, analytics, and utilized all of those to figure out what we can double down on in 2022. Then we moved into the why. We asked people, okay, why did you do this? Why did you share? Why did you save? Why did you like? Why did you engage? Okay, then we go into the third part of the process, which is looking at what people were engaging and looking at the comments and seeing, were they speaking our brand lingo? Were they utilizing the words that we actually put into our social media posts, or were they utilizing other words? And should we start utilizing that kind of communication style and kind of sprinkling it into future social media posts? It's really important to look at how people engaged and then utilizing some of that wording and saying, they're utilizing this, they're saying this, they're talking to us like this. That means I know now more about my audience and I'm going to speak to them in the language that they are speaking, not just splattering out what I want to say, but really absorbing what they're giving me. And so we have a two-way dialogue, not just a one-way conversation. So the second thing that I like to do when I'm doing any sort of social media strategy is think about testing. Okay, so test. Yes, you must test out your content. Think about just putting it all out there and not thinking too much about how it's going to land, because a lot of times we hold back content. We don't do what we should have done. We don't post that post that we thought could have gone viral, and you might miss an opportunity. You might miss an opportunity because maybe it doesn't use trending audio. Maybe it doesn't use that hashtag that everybody is using that day, but maybe it's completely and uniquely and authentically you, and that will resonate with your audience. So don't feel like you have to hop onto a bandwagon of everybody else when you can just test out your content to your audience and see what sticks. Sometimes it's the most unexpected thing that actually hits and you're like, Okay. And you want to do a lot of testing. You want to test so much that you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm getting all these ideas out. And then you have enough to look at to say, let me make this decision and let me double down on this versus this. That's the next step, is to test. So the third part, which I think is kind of tied to number 4, which is the content creation side of things, is to think about the scheduling aspect. Because when you're thinking about your social media strategy, a lot of it has to do with collecting those insights and seeing, okay, well, people were engaging at 8 o'clock versus 9 o'clock. And then looking at how much you can create on one end. But in the middle sits that really important aspect of things, which is the scheduling plan. And a lot of times we think about, we're gonna post so many times a day and we're gonna do it all. And then it doesn't happen, right? So when you think about creating your social media strategy, you need to think about what is going to be something that you can sustain, that you can be consistent at, that you can make sure that you're so far ahead in your content planning that you're not gonna miss scheduling your posts. And I know that a lot of times what I have done is felt really overwhelmed at what kind of grand, social media content strategy that I've put together that I can't keep up with the amount of content that I need to create to actually fulfill it, to actually implement that plan. So when you're creating it, you need to put together a social media scheduling plan that is so fail-safe, that you know that you can do with your eyes closed, right? That you can be consistent at, that you don't miss, that you show up every single time you say that you're going to show up. Because if you don't, then it starts to eat at you like, oh, I missed that one post. Oh, I didn't do that. Oh, I didn't do that. And then you just stop posting altogether, right? So you want to create a social media scheduling plan. It's kind of like an editorial calendar that is really so in the zone that with your life goals, with your personal, your mental health, all of those things put together that you can sustain consistently, that's not going to drive you crazy, right? That's not going to make you lose it when you miss a post, or, oh, it was 2 minutes late, or, oh, all of those O's that happen over time. You don't want those to happen. You just want to create something that is sustainable and consistent that that you can do. So now that you have created your scheduling plan, you want to think about the content creation side of things, because the scheduling plan is just the implementation side of things. So now in the content creation side of things, you have to kind of work backwards from that scheduling plan and go, okay, well, how long is it going to take for me to create the amount of content that I need to put into that scheduling plan, right? So when you think about that, it's like, okay, I need to work seriously backwards to go, okay, it's going to take me an hour to create these posts. It's going to take me 2 hours to actually do the visuals for the content, or whatever it is that you do and is your process. But you need to think about that really long and hard, because you've already laid out your scheduling plan of what you're putting on Instagram, Pinterest, Snapchat, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever it is that you're going to post to on all of those social platforms. You need to think about how you're going to create the content and what timeline you need to be able to create it in a warm, healthy, positive manner, so that you don't get burned out, right? You don't want to be burned out on the actual creation of your content. You want to be inspired. You want to be living life, right? You don't want to be bogged down and be like, oh my gosh, I said I was going to post it and I didn't post it. And now people aren't going to see it. Like, all of those thoughts, you don't want those in your head. You want to be like, okay, I've got this scheduling plan and I know how I can get it accomplished, and make that work backwards for you in your timeline, so that you don't get caught up in those negative feelings, and you don't get caught up in like, I didn't post, now I'm never going to post again, right? You want to be in that zone so that you can create the best content that you have inside. So next up, as part of that strategy, you need to have some sort of day of the week, or maybe once a month, to really look at the content that you're putting out and do some sort of analysis and really look back and track what's working and what's not, because in real time, it kind of can get a little convoluted. So you want to take a step back and look at what you're doing, maybe once a week, maybe twice a month to look at what is hitting and what is missing. Because part of a social media strategy and of all business plans is being able to adapt, right? Being able to adapt to change. And with social media in this last 2 years, there have been so many changes. You can just look at Instagram and the fact that Reels has kind of become their priority. They've taken off and moved around buttons and started paying creators even more. Like, there are so many changes at Instagram. And shopping and live shopping for Facebook Live and Amazon Live and TikTok Live and all of these different kinds of live shopping platforms as well. Like, there are so many innovations that have been happening. Pinterest has added Pinterest Live for certain creators. Like, there is so much happening that is really great to just stay up to date and also re-look at your strategy while you're in it. Now, I know that a lot of times you're like, oh, hey, I'm on a roller coaster. I can't really get off this roller coaster. It's still moving. You need to be able to adjust in those ups and downs, those peaks and valleys. You need to be able to look at what you're doing and say, hey, if I just tweak it, if I look at this month and go, this month versus last month, this one was hitting a little bit more. What was different about this month, right? That is the biggest question. What was different? And what did I do differently that had a big impact on how the results are working, on my growth, on my engagement, all of those metrics. So think about what day you can schedule in, right? You want to plan this into your strategy. What you're going to do. Am I looking at it twice a month? Once a week, once a month? Make sure that that's built in so that you are conditioned to just continually go back and be like, okay, Friday of, the last Friday of every month, I'm looking at my metrics. I'm looking at my insights. I'm looking at all of this to make sure that when I move forward with the next month, I've implemented whatever I've learned from the previous month. Okay, now finally, I want to make sure that if you're creating a social media strategy for your business plan, you need to have a little fun, right? Like, I think a lot of times we look at this and it's like, it's daunting, it's overwhelming. There's so many different social platforms to stay up to date with. Think about the ones that you're good at. Think about the ones that you get the highest engagement on and focus on those first. You don't have to be on all platforms to be successful. So think about the ones that you do well and can really get into and be strategic about how you are mapping out your plan for success for those social platforms. Don't think you have to be on everything. It just isn't the case. Not everybody has to be on every social media platform. It's just not a thing. You can start out with 1 or 2 and then sprinkle a few more in as you get more confident on other platforms. It really is up to you and how you view what you want as far as your goals. Like we talked about at the beginning, business plan starts with goals. Adding that social media strategy into your plan is only part of the process. I hope that this helps in creating your social media strategy. I wanted to share with you what I'm doing for my social strategy. So, like I said at the beginning, I'm sharing with you my social strategy for online growth for my social media profiles. Now, these are not things that you have to do. I just want to stress with you that one point. This is what I'm doing for my social media platforms to specifically grow my profiles online. So, I am doing on Instagram 1 static post, 1 video post, 10 stories, and 2 reels per day. On LinkedIn, I'm doing 1 post per day and 1 poll per day. On Snapchat, I'm doing 1 snap per day. I actually just created that profile, so I have a new business profile. You should check it out. I'm also doing 1 post on Facebook and at least 3 posts in my Facebook group at College of Style. I'm doing 20 tweets on Twitter, which I love doing because it's kind of like my check-in. I love Twitter and have always loved Twitter. And I'm doing 1 Pinterest idea pin per day and 3 videos on TikTok. So this is what I'm doing for my social media strategy for online growth in 2022. I started out a little slow in implementing what I was doing because I didn't really have a rhythm of how I was going to implement, especially doing stories throughout the day. But I've kind of now gotten into a pace that I can keep up, and it's not something that's daunting anymore. And I think that just like I said before, if you haven't had a chance to figure out what works for you and what you can sustain and be consistent at. It's just a matter of time. You need to figure out how you can map out your days and map out your structure with your scheduling, whether it's on Later, it could be on Tailwind, it could be on Hootsuite, which is the one that I use, but really figuring out how you can pre-schedule different content, maybe on Facebook or Instagram Creator Studio, whatever it is that you are utilizing to make that happen. Get into that rhythm, that flow, so that it makes sense for your typical day. Not just like, hey, I'm on vacation day, but like your typical day where you know that you have only a certain amount of time to do that, because you already have other time focused on generating leads and getting back to clients and doing the client work, all of that stuff. So you want to make sure that you're putting forth a plan that you can actually sustain. Like I said before, it's a beast. It's a beast to maintain, but if you can do what works for you, then it won't be so overwhelming. Thank you so much for joining me today on this video about creating your social media strategy for 2022. Subscribe to my channel. That helps me and helps create more content for you on this channel. And also join my free private community. All you have to do is visit www.collegeofstylecommunity.com and click that button to join free today.